John has a long mustache. Hi there, I'm Roger Johnson. This is another Roger Johnson's America. Remember, if you love America, you'll like this video. On this episode, I head to Europe, specifically France, more specifically Normandy, France, where I tour the D-Day battlefields, D-Day plus 24,816 to be specific. You're not going to want to miss this episode. I love to travel, and I love America. From the Purple Mountains' majesty and across the fruited plain, from sea to shining sea. I want you to join me as I celebrate America one adventure at a time. This is Roger Johnson's America. To start my trip, I headed to Paris, France, where I hit all of the highlights, all the top attractions, the Eiffel Tower, the Arc de Triomphe, Notre Dame Cathedral. I even had a whole day that I spent wandering around the Louvre Museum. I am never going to go to an art museum from now on where I won't be disappointed. It was pretty good. My feet were sore by the end of the day. Even got lost at one point. But yeah, that was a long day. Wasn't the longest day. I took a day out of my trip to jump on a train from Paris, went to Carentan, France, which is in Normandy. There I met up with the D-Day battle tours. They did a very good job showing you where everything took place and how it all went down, and really well done. Really glad I took a tour rather than trying to do it by myself the first time visiting there. We got to see as many of the D-Day battlefields and sites as we could fit into a day. The tour that I took focused on the American involvement in the battle. June 6, 1944, Allied forces consisting of the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Free French forces, and other Allied nations from across Europe and around the world invaded German-occupied France. Codenamed Operation Overlord, it was the largest seaborne invasion in history. Paratroopers and gliders initiated the attack, followed by landings along the coast. Beachheads were codenamed Utah and Omaha for American forces, Sword and Gold for British, and Juno for Canadian. We started the tour in the town of Saint-Mère-Église. That is where the invasion started, where the first paratroopers landed in the very early morning of June 6, 1944. There's a church in the center of town where they still have a parachute hanging from the steeple with a paratrooper, a dummy, hanging there representing and honoring the paratroopers that liberated the town back then in 1944. The tour, it was a very good tour, but it has all the downsides of every tour. You either have too much time or too little time to do what you want to do, and this was kind of the case of both throughout the day. But again, really well done. We get out of the van, and I've got my camera, and I'm going to go take pictures and shoot video, and the tour guides, hey, come back here. We got to teach you some things first. So they did their talk about what happened there in the town, and then I got to wander a little bit. Didn't have quite as much time as I would have wanted to, but again, that's the nature of a tour, and I can always go back. From there, from the church, right across the street is the Airborne Museum. You go inside, they've got a C-47 as well as one of the gliders that was used. They had paratroopers and gliders, wooden gliders that came in and brought troops into the battlefield, back behind the enemy lines, back away from the coast. That was an instance where I wandered around and I kind of saw everything that I wanted to see, and then they didn't move on with the tour right away. So as the battle went on, as the day went on, troops and armor coming in from the shore ended up linking up with the airborne troops that had landed in the town earlier in the day. After a quick bite of lunch, that's where we headed. We headed down to the beaches, and on the way, they stopped and they pointed out, here's what those hedgerows look like. This is, you hear about the hedgerows, you see it portrayed in film and movies, documentaries. They talk about these mounds of dirt with these hedges on top of it, which were, you couldn't see around them, and they would line the roads. Very tough, and it was cool to see them in person and to see, oh, this is what those obstacles really were like. We stopped by the beaches, the American beaches, Omaha and Utah. The tour did such an amazing job of laying out the context of the order of battle, where the Germans were, where the Americans were, why Omaha Beach was such a nightmare relative to Utah and some of the other beaches being invaded by the other Allied forces. From the Utah and Omaha beaches, we headed to Point de Houx. This is where the Army Rangers scaled the cliffs to take out guns that were positioned up on top of those heights overlooking the beaches. And from up there, you could see down and you could see where they were shelling our guys as they were coming ashore. As you wandered around the area, back up away from the cliffs, there's still craters from bombing. You know, the Army Air Corps came through beforehand and tried bombing them out to little effect, I think, ultimately, but those craters are still there, and it's kind of cool, kind of eerie to see that. The tour wrapped up at the American Cemetery there in Normandy, and it's just like whether you're going to Arlington or Gettysburg or any other military cemetery. You get an overwhelming sense of sacrifice and pride in America. It's tough to describe, something you have to see for yourself, experience for yourself, and I highly recommend that you do that. In total, there were over 10,000 Allied casualties. Included in that was over 4,000 confirmed killed. If you watch the movie Saving Private Ryan, the beginning scene and the end scene takes place at the American Cemetery there in Normandy. Saving Private Ryan is a fictional story set during the D-Day invasion. Other movies are out there, including The Longest Day. Just watched that this morning. Highly recommend it. As well as on television, like in HBO's miniseries Band of Brothers. If you watch the first episode of Band of Brothers, the very first episode is the 101st Airborne, and they're training at Camp Toccoa, Georgia. And you will see them in that episode. They run up Mount Currahee. You can still run up Mount Currahee. I did this a couple of years ago on D-Day, actually, the anniversary of D-Day, that is. And, I ran some of the way, walked some of the way, but I made it to the top. Something that you can still do. There's a little museum at the bottom as well where the camp used to be. It's certainly not the full camp, but they've got some buildings, artifacts and things in there that you can explore. Look them up online, find out information on when they're open and all that. That's going to wrap up this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you liked it. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and tune in next time. Follow me on the social medias. You know the drill.